My last few videos have been about improving or upgrading different games, but I get bored too easily and Nintendo has no clue how to use the internet. So instead of games today, let's make Nintendo's crappy online service just the slightest bit worth it. Give the people what they want. Or more accurately, give the people what I want. I'm gonna do Nintendo's job for them and upgrade Nintendo Switch Online. Before I start the video proper, I'd just like to ask you, if you enjoy this content, to like, subscribe, and comment with any other games or services you'd like to see me upgrade. Yeah, I'm a sellout. Watch the video now, alright? But Danny, this is such an unoriginal complaint, you say scathingly from your anonymous YouTube persona. I know. I wouldn't be complaining about it if it wasn't still a problem.
In some games it works well enough, like Mario Kart and Splatoon. But in others, like Smash Bros. And Mario Maker, it's absolutely awful. Lag runs through their code like Cheese Whiz runs through our veins. If you're paying for an online service on top of a $60 game, it's expected that it's at least going to be a decent online service. But no, it's not. So please, Nintendo, stop living in last century and give us some decent servers instead of peer-to-peer connection in our online games. While I feel like there's a lot of value in the NES and SNES apps, they're missing a ton of classics. Metal Gear, Castlevania, Contra, Bomberman, Final Fantasy, and Mega Man are all must-have third-party games for the NES.
And don't tell me they might not be able to get permission. Nintendo has great relationships with Square Enix, Konami, and Capcom.
All three of these companies had their games show up in the NES Classic Edition. There are some arcade types missing too. Galaga, Pac-Man, and Tetris are all important games from the time. Galaga and Pac-Man shouldn't be a problem. Nintendo and Bandai love each other more than I love my cats, and Bandai's even developing a bunch of Nintendo first-party games. Tetris could be a bit harder because it's owned by the Tetris company, but I hope they try. And lastly, two first-party titles missing from the NES lineup, Duck Hunt and Mother. Both of these have some issues when it comes down to it, I suppose. Duck Hunt used the NES Zapper, a special control scheme, and Mother was Japan only and hasn't been translated. But Nintendo can make their NES emulator support Joy-Con motion controls. As for Mother, they dropped Super Puyo Puyo 2 on SNES untranslated, and although I could barely get through the menus, I know there are some fans who would love this. And they haven't even put Mother on the Famicom version of the service. What are you doing, Nintendo? Those are the must-haves, but there are a couple more I'd like to see. Monk Rider, Dig Dug, Load Runner, and the Ninja Gaiden sequels would be pretty sweet.
There are some much more egregious titles missing from here.
Obviously, I'd like sequels to some of the third-party series I mentioned in the NES section. Mega Man X, Super Castlevania 4, Super Bomberman, and Final Fantasy VI are all fantastic.
Of course I'd know, I've never played them. Except Mega Man X, I have played that one. I wouldn't have to lie, Nintendo, if you added these games. Why am I destroying my credibility like this?
There are some other very important third-party games I'd like to see, mainly Chrono Trigger, Harvest Moon, and Street Fighter 2. Those would be great. As for first-party games, the one everybody is asking for at this point is Super Mario RPG. Agreed. I also want Super Mario All-Stars, Earthbound, and I know we just got Donkey Kong Country, but I'd like DKC 2 and 3 as well. The tricky one here is Mario Paint, which similarly to Duck Hunt, has a control scheme the Switch currently doesn't support. Which wouldn't be a problem if they just added USB mouse support in a software update.
So those are the NES and SNES games which I really think would round out the Switch's online library, and there's potential for them to come in the future, so let's keep our fingers crossed.
If there are any I missed or any you particularly want to see, let me know about it down in that comment section.
While we're still on the topic of improving the NES and SNES apps, there's one big addition I'd like to see: being able to look at the original game manual.
Manuals were a much bigger part of these games back in the day. I know that modern games have all but done away with them, but they basically include the story, tutorial, hints, and guides in them. It would be very helpful if, for instance, as I play through The Legend of Zelda, I can glance at the manual. Without it, it's very difficult to understand or progress at all, really. They had this feature in the Wii U Virtual Console, so it really can't be all that hard to add it here. Even if it was something that you could only access while connected to the internet, I think this feature would be incredible. Also, I tend to view these as a miniature museum, because I don't have any other easy ways to play NES and SNES games. Having the manuals would really enhance that museum feeling, like I'm looking into a past age.
Now, this doesn't affect me much because I don't tend to use cloud saves, but there are a couple of games that are more noticeably absent from this service than me from a social event. Who am I kidding? I'm not invited to social events.
There's really no excuse for this. Nintendo has said something like blah blah competitive fairness in regards to certain games, but Smash Bros is supported, so that's a lie. Splatoon 2, Daemon X Machina, and the Pokemon games are probably these biggest ones that don't support it. I'd like to see Nintendo try to work around these issues instead of just throwing up their hands. But Animal Crossing just got it added, and I had it in the script before they released that trailer, so maybe these other ones will come eventually. It's heavily theorized that Nintendo 64 games will be making their way to the service this September, because the NES games released in September 2018 and the SNES games released in September 2019. Obviously, the next step is N64 games in 2020.
Personally, I don't think there's enough evidence to show a pattern yet, but trust whatever leak you want. Just keep one thing in mind. When was the last time one was right?
Also, I think people are leaving out a very likely possibility, that it isn't Nintendo 64 games we get this fall. Game Boy and Game Boy Color games actually seem very likely, and are much closer in style and quality to NES and SNES games. I think they'd lump them in together due to the backward compatibility and many similarities. It would be great to have some portable console representation, although of course I'd prefer the N64. So let's determine the 20 games each of these services should launch with. I'll do Game Boy first and save the best, N64 for last. Let's try to avoid those which are simply ports of NES games we already have. Obviously, we'll start out with the two Mario games, Super Mario Land and Super Mario Land 2, the 6 golden coins. We can also throw in Wario Land, Super Mario Land 3. You decide for yourself if that's a Mario game or not, and while we're at it, it should have its sequel. 5th and 6th will be Donkey Kong Land and Donkey Kong. To the untrained eye, it's simply a port of the NES game, but there's a lot more after you beat the first 4 levels. We'll need the first 2 Kirby games, Dreamland and Dreamland 2, at spots 7 and 8. At 9, Link's Awakening with a deluxe option, and 10, Oracle of Ages and Seasons. Does that count as 1 game? 2 games? Not sure, but I'll address that in a bit. I'd like Metroid 2, Return of Samus, and the Game & Watch Gallery. But there are a few very important games I'm missing, and those are, of course, Pokemon. They were a huge part of the Game Boy's library and success, so it's only fair we include a bunch of them. We'll need Red and Blue, Gold and Silver, Puzzle Challenge, Pinball, and the trading card game. Depending on whether or not you count the 3 dual games I've mentioned as 2 or not, we're at 20 games or 17. If you consider this only 17, then the last 3 games I'd like to see are Rayman, Shantae, and Metal Gear Solid, bringing us up to 20. The 2 games that almost made my Game Boy cut were Kirby Tilt and Tumble and Pokemon Yellow Special Edition, but we already had a bunch of Pokemon, and Nintendo seems to have trouble with special control schemes.
That was fun, but you know what's even more fun? Theorizing about what N64 games might appear. It's an extremely exciting prospect because unlike NES and SNES games, they still hold up great today. I recently played through Mario 64 for the first time, and I had a blast. Oh? What's that? I can blatantly self-promote because I brought up the topic? Go check out my Mario 64 playthrough up in the corner, but in a new tab, after you finish this video. Here are the 20 essential N64 games I think we need and hope we get.
Let's start with the heavy number of Mario games that are always a large part of Nintendo's lineup. Of course we'll need Super Mario 64 and all the best spin-offs. Mario Kart, Paper Mario, Mario Tennis, Mario Golf, and Mario Party 2, widely considered the best of the original 3 Mario Party games. In the same vein, I'd like Yoshi's Story, the sequel to Yoshi's Island. There go 7 of our slots right off the bat. We need more games though. Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, the 2 Zelda games, belong here, along with Star Fox, Kirby, and Donkey Kong. A couple of Pokemon games, I'd like Snap and Stadium 2. Smushing all the games together I just talked about, we get Super Smash Bros. That makes 15 games right there. Let's toss in Pilot Wings and 1080-degree snowboarding, leaving us with 3 slots. You may not know, but the N64 had a bunch of great racing games besides Mario Kart 64, and I'd like to see Excitebike 64, Diddy Kong Racing, and F-Zero X round out the top 20. There are so many great N64 games from Nintendo that we don't even need to dip into third-party games, but Mega Man 64, Rayman 2, Mystical Ninja starring Goemon, Harvest Moon 64, and Bomberman 64 would all be great additions.
There you have it, folks. With a few more NES and SNES games, manuals, a better actual online service, a few more cloud save options, and at least one more virtual console, I think we could definitively say that Nintendo's online service isn't, well, a complete and utter garbage fire. Did I miss any games that you think belong in the NES, SNES, Game Boy, or N64 libraries? Have any more ideas for Nintendo to add? Let me know down in the comments, and make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video and want to see more. I know I'm a sellout!